We're so pleased today to introduce to you Kate Farina from Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa. They advocate empowering parents to take childhood back from smartphones and social media and promoting phone-free schools and safer edtech. So I'd like to just say welcome and hand over to you for a bit of an introduction.
Thank you very much for having us. Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa is one of now 39 chapters around the world, and we are all in our own different ways really premised on the recommendations that have come out of the research of our children being online for the last 15 years, particularly on smart devices like smartphones, and some of the impacts which I think we're going to discuss today that we are seeing. What can we do about it? So a lot of the experts in the field, experts like Dr. Jonathan Haidt, who published his best-selling book last year, The Anxious Generation, The Great Rewiring of Childhood, suggest that to shift towards new norms, to try and improve the mental health, the terrible mental health impacts that we're seeing on our children and our teenagers, we need to think about some new digital norms. And these essentially are parents coming together to delay smartphones until high school, because smartphones particularly become a 24/7 accessory once we give them to our children. Obviously, iPads as well is very much an issue in terms of early and inappropriate access to content. The second norm is to look at delaying social media until 16. So for that, we obviously need assistance with our regulators. We'll talk a little bit about that too. The third norm is just to get phones out of schools, out of classrooms, allowing teachers to teach and kids to learn, to get the distraction of smartphones and the never-ending notifications from social media, so phone-free schools. And obviously all of that is aimed at trying to give our children much more real-life experience and exposure to build all those skills that they need to become fully functional adults and on the road to that happy, healthy teenagers. And of course, as parents have started coming together to say, yes, this is what we need, and we really agree that we need to learn from the previous generation what's happened, and we need to come together and delay giving our children smartphones. So the question around the use of edtech, particularly in primary school, has arisen, particularly when primary schools are asking parents to invest in devices like iPads and laptops, and these then are coming home for parents to manage. So we've got a fifth norm, which is what our particular chapter in South Africa is also looking closely at.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to jump right in. Why is wellness important to you, and what is one wellness non-negotiable for you?
I'm going to talk particularly to digital wellness, because that's the area that we're focusing on as an NGO. And I think just in our modern day and age, we can't escape technology. We can't escape being on our digital devices, but it is, and many of us do recognize, it's exhausting. It's taking a lot out of us, and we very often find ourselves in the trap that the tool is using us rather than us using the tool. And so obviously as adults, we need to be role modeling the behaviors we want to be seeing in our children as well. So we really have to think about being more mindful about the amount of time and where we're spending it on devices. For me, I think the one non-negotiable when it comes to family digital health is trying to instill very early on for both parents and children, no phones in bedrooms overnight. I think that's the golden rule. We'll chat a little bit more about that later, but honestly, that is probably the biggest difference that families can make to digital health and to impacts on our children, is getting phones out of bedrooms at night. Charge them somewhere else.
Yes. Okay, perfect. What led you to become such an expert in this field, and what drives you to keep going?
Well, my kids are teenagers. My eldest is just about to turn 18, but it was a few years ago, probably about 10 years ago, I was starting to hear experts in the field talking about what was going on online, and like many other parents, feeling quite anxious, quite terrified, quite sort of paralyzed what to do next. And so I started an organization called Be in Touch, which was really aimed at upskilling and empowering parents with practical tools that they needed to manage children's devices, take more mindful decisions around apps and games, and to better filter, manage and monitor those devices. And obviously along the way, with the research that has been published in the last sort of 18 months really, it just felt like a culmination of all of those efforts to be one of the founding members and to really push the development and the registration of Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa as an NGO, so that we can make a broader difference in many of our communities around the country.
Perfect. And chat to us a bit about the impact of tech on our kids.
So what the research is showing is that with our children accessing devices, and particularly smart devices, ever younger, and particularly also accessing social media ever younger with no real age restrictions and proper age gating in place, is there has definitely been a correlation with impacts on their mental health, and more specifically when it comes to our girls, rising trends of anxiety, depression and self-harm. And when it comes to our boys, just because our boys and girls are differently wired when it comes to neurological wiring, is our boys are much more prone to addictions, online pornography, gaming, and very recently a big rise in gambling addictions, and they are more susceptible to suicide.
That is absolutely shocking.
Mm.
Would you say that this has a similar, well, you've just said we kind of wire differently, so different things will affect the girls and different things will affect the boys. But overall, it's not good.
Well, girls are very social beings. We compare ourselves. We're very comparative beings. So a platform like Instagram is the perfect example of a platform that keeps girls hooked in and keeps them comparing themselves, chasing that illusion of perfection. Whereas our boys, obviously at the age of, or particularly going through puberty, are very much wired to go and go to war against another tribe, go and find more resources for their tribe, to go and find a mate to procreate. So a lot of our online games and online pornography, as well as gambling, all feeds into that particular time of their lives where their brains are looking for thrills and risks and spills, which are exactly what they should be getting in real life, but now it's very easy to get it online. I think the impact on women, and particularly mums, is huge, because it just tends to be the burden of keeping our kids safe online somehow seems to fall on the shoulders of mothers as well. And in fact, the US Surgeon General and his team published an advisory a couple of years ago which said that the mental health of parents is under stress as well, and the number one cause of that stress is anxiety and stress around kids being online and accessing social media. So I think that's quite interesting and quite indicative that amongst all the many other stresses that modern parents have, is that it's the concern around what their kids are doing and what they're accessing and what they're being exposed to and how they're being harmed online that keeps them the most anxious, the most awake at night.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack some current statistics on the impact of tech on mental health.
So I think we've talked a little bit about what the research is showing, is that the rise of depression, anxiety, self-harm and suicide is continuing unabated, and that if we don't try and step in and come together as parents and educators as well as regulators to try and relook at what this, really this norm of our children accessing ever younger digital devices and the online world, we're not going to see the swing back. We're not going to see any real impact. So I think that we've got, there are so many risks. We're going to talk a little bit later around what our children are actually facing online and what they're seeing and doing and experiencing. But the statistics are huge. The numbers, when we look at that, the research that we have done, which just shows that the majority of our kids are accessing social media before under 13, and this is quite significant because currently social media apps are not age regulated, they are self-regulated. So they'll put 13 as an age in the App Store because that allows them to get away with the data privacy restrictions that the US puts on. They can't mine the data of children under 13. So these are not age-appropriate age restrictions, which is why we're seeing countries like Australia start to bring in age restrictions of 16 plus, and many of the European countries are starting to follow suit. So this is the epidemic of our times. Jonathan Haidt says it so well, is that through no fault of our own, this last generation of parents, and I'm part of that generation of parents, we made two big, although well-intentioned mistakes. We were overprotecting our children in the real world and underprotecting our children online.
Gosh, it's such a huge problem and far-reaching. It's quite, it's very concerning. In your opinion, what are 3 rules to kind of protect yourself against a negative impact?
I think the biggest opportunity that parents of young children have got now is to come together and agree around delaying devices until high school. And it might be that we're going to look back and we're going to say that actually we should have delayed devices until 18. Brad Huddleston, who's a wonderful author in this area, says that we should delay smartphones actually until 25, because that's when the prefrontal cortex, with those executive functioning skills like impulse control and risk versus consequence, actually gets finely developed. But delay access at least until high school, but as long as you possibly can. I think when your children do get access to smartphones or to iPads or even gaming devices which are connected to the internet, it's to be very conscious about how you implement the 3 layers of protection. So how are you putting monitoring or filtering on your Wi-Fi as the first level? The second level is, what are you doing to those devices in terms of the built-in protections, safety and privacy restrictions that there might be? And then the third is at the app and game level. So again, what safety, privacy, parental control restrictions can you put on those? And then the third, I think, golden rule would be, again, just get all of those devices out of rooms at night. Part of what is fueling our mental health epidemic is the fact that our teenagers are just not getting enough sleep. Any teenager that has their phone or a tablet or a gaming device in their room at night is not getting enough sleep. They'll be on that device until 2, 3 in the morning. And besides the fact that, tired brains don't make good decisions, they're just not getting enough sleep. They are what we're calling socially jet lagged. They go to school early the next morning, but brains are only waking up about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so you're a huge advocate against screen time, obviously. So you've named a few ways how we can delay this. I feel like the government needs to have more of a, help with restrictions as well. Like Australia is doing, and the European countries. They need to also work with parents.
Yeah, parents and educators, we really do need the government. And so the couple of ways that we as an organization have started engaging our own government is firstly around phone-free schools and the more mindful use and the safeguarding of tech that's used for EdTech at schools. And we actually have a petition that we're running as well in order to get public opinion around phone-free schools. And this is one of the biggest trending norms actually internationally. We've got lots of countries that have actually adopted policy or legislation which helps schools to go that route. Here in South Africa at the moment, in the public school space, it's left to the school governing body, and the private school base is left to the board to make those decisions. But we are seeing a big trend in schools in South Africa starting to pivot towards being phone-free. The other area of our focus and our advocacy is, of course, we've been in very close contact with our allies and our counterparts in other countries, including in Australia. And so we are very much looking at how that legislation has been developed and how it's being implemented, because we would love to also see a similar approach here in South Africa. And again, that would be the Department of Digital Communications, as well as the Film and Publication Board and the Information Regulator, looking at how we could bring in similar minimum age restrictions here for South African children.
That's great to know that it's been received so well and that people are at least willing to listen and engage.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the Education Department in South Africa tackling this issue at all?
So we don't have national policy at the moment around this, and this is an area that we would very much like Department of Education and also all the provincial departments of education, because this is an area where we need to take into account provincial responsibilities as well. But this is, as I said, something that we are engaging with our government around, and we would love to see more action, more attention given to this. Here in South Africa, we've got to take also account of the fact that we have what is called the digital divide. So we will have some schools that have better resources, so they may have a computer center where children can access that to learn important skills like coding, for example, digital literacy. Other schools, of course, won't have this, and that's is when they often require students to bring their smartphones to school in order to be able to access the internet. But we are quite keen that we unpack this scenario, because we're very cautious about replacing the one harm, which is under-resourced schools and lack of resources and digital access for those children, with another harm, which is essentially smartphones on school campus, which cannot be managed by schools, and bring in themselves a whole lot of digital drama and digital issues that we see in the news a lot. We see learners filming each other, and we see them filming teachers, a lot of cyberbullying that goes on school campuses, things like sextortion, where we have teenage gangs now which set up profiles to do inter-school sextortion. So there are a lot of issues relating to smartphones coming onto school campus, and we would urge our government and our private public sectors to look very closely at the resourcing of our schools, so that EdTech is school-owned, school-managed. It's not tech that has to be brought to school by the learner, or tech that gets sent home to try and be managed by the parents who are busy, overwhelmed, and under-equipped to do this.
I have a question on, because I think realistically a lot of children have access to TV and iPads that are young, toddlers, to get them to eat. I know I'm guilty of that.
We're all bullshit.
Terrible eater, but I limit her to an hour a day of TV. She doesn't have an iPad. What is in your opinion, your recommendation for kids that are sort of younger, toddler to 13?
So the World Health Organization guidelines is what we rely on, and they are pretty much similar to the American pediatric guidelines as well. From up to 18 months, 2 years, the recommendation is no screen time is necessary for any littlies, and after that, up until about 5 or 6, the recommendation is an hour a day. And you're right, you've got to put in there TV, you've got to put in any screen time. So I think that just gives you an idea that it really is a very, very limited amount that goes into their day, or should be going into their day, that our focus needs to be on. That early childhood development process is on lots of offline play experiences, helping them, channeling them towards being able to manage and to deal with their own boredom, getting creative around their play and how they play with each other. So that is really what we should be really focusing on as a childhood which is rich in interpersonal experience, not rich in online experience. We want them to flourish. We want to see our children leave the nest and become fully functioning adults. And to do that, they need to have lots of offline experience and lots of interpersonal, as I've said, growth. If we come together as a community of parents and stand together, it becomes a lot easier. And in fact, 25% is considered a tipping point. So if you have, in your child's class, if you've got 25% of the parents that are saying we want to delay smartphones until high school, then that's going to become a lot easier to get to a new norm, to shift towards a new norm, because your child is not the only one. And it has more opportunity to play dates with children that also don't have access to devices. And we're encouraging a better way of approaching childhood. So what we have started is a parent pact, which allows you to go and look for your child's primary school. So every primary school in the country is loaded up there, and you can find your child's primary school. You can then go in and create a pact for your child. So you look for your child's grade, and then you are connected with a monthly email which gives you the list of all the children. It's just the child's first name and the first letter of their surname, but you will get an update every month with the list of other children in that school and in that grade whose parents have also signed a pact to delay smartphones. And so we're building communities. We're building these little micro tribes of parents that can say, we have similar values, we've got a similar outlook, and we believe in a better future for our children. So that is really about the community we've built. We've got regional WhatsApp groups, so anyone can go and have a look, and you can join all of these off our website. It's www.sfc-sa.co.za. We've got WhatsApp communities in every single region where you can join. We can set up under that a school WhatsApp community where you guys can share what's going on, information. If there's particular events that you want to get going or get started in your school. And we also have a wonderful newsletter, Substack, that goes out once a month, which you can sign up as well through our website. And we've got monthly webinars that we run. So just to connect our community to the information that they need. We've just relaunched our website, and we're busy building out some fantastic resources that are going to be put up on our website. And this helps parents to be able to take that first step, to spark a conversation in their school community or their other, whatever it might look like, religious community. I mean, there are so many different kinds of communities where these conversations can and should be happening.
Perfect. So this is a bit of a contentious, in your opinion, obviously, how important is it for parents to walk the talk themselves? And obviously, it's not, like for instance with me, I find it easy to let that, but my husband will not.
Yeah.
So
it's hard, right? Yeah. And we all have to be there for each other, right? Because it's digital tech is built to be such a hook and to pull us in. And it's built on what's called persuasive technology, which is what the gambling industry is built on. So once you get in there, it's very hard to get out, to stop. We all need to be each other's, I guess our cheerleader and our sounding board. And we need to be able to say to each other, actually, let's get off our devices. What are we doing? Is this work, or is this play? Is this something that's really important? And what are we giving up? Because that's what also we're trying to teach our children, is every time you go online, you're giving up an opportunity, an offline opportunity. And what is that? Are you giving up sleep? Are you giving up exercise? Are you giving up family time? What are you giving up? Because that is the reality. You're making a sacrifice every time you go online. And yes, we need to be online to work. We're online right now. So we spend a lot of time in our days, whether it's at school or whether it's, but when it comes to entertainment versus education, that's when we have to really relook. And using apps like, for example, digital well-being or your screen time apps, which are all built in on our phones, it gives us a whole fresh perspective when we actually have a look at those statistics and actually see how much time we're spending and where we're spending it. And really, are we wasting? Are we frittering away our time?
Exactly. Okay, perfect. So what are the three, this is the last question, what are the three things you wish South African parents knew when it came to the dangers of unlimited tech for the kids?
Well, I think that we don't really realize that it is a portal to so many places that we can't go, and we don't know where they're going. We cannot follow our children. And I've been in this business of trying to help parents manage devices and manage apps and games, and I can honestly tell you that it is very, very, very hard, and we will never know what our children have seen and what have they been exposed to, because they won't talk to us about it. They'll try to internalize and manage it. So our children, honestly, there is no child that gets a phone or a smartphone or a gaming device that will not be exposed to cyberbullying, to inappropriate adult content, to messages from strangers, to potential sextortion or grooming attempts, to body issues, just to a huge range of the most awful kinds of things. And the algorithms serve us content based on where we pause online. And so what our feed looks like is very different to our children's feed, because they might pause on something shocking or horrific not because they want to watch it, because they're shocked, and the will say, right, that's something that this user wants to see more of. So they do get into loops of content, particularly on social media apps like Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram, which are very, very hard for us to manage the kind of content that we get served and that they get served. I just don't think that most of us as parents realize in what the dangers and what the exposures and the levels of horrific mental abuse our children suffer from access to the online world.
It surprises me that there's still parents that think it's okay with all the information coming out.
Yeah, well, I think, our movement is very much a non-judgmental movement. It's about saying we're all learning as we're going. And I think we do have a lot of parents that say, well, our kids are better at tech than us and they must learn, and this is a fact of life, and we've got to, they've got to figure out how to manage it. But I really don't see any need for any of our children to be online earlier than they absolutely need to be. And there is no child that will be left behind because they haven't had an iPad by age 5 or 6, because all of this tech is intuitive. They will all access tech if you access tech at the right time, and do so in healthy, managed, monitored, filtered ways, which is absolutely, part of the license to parent, is to manage and filter and monitor and put boundaries and rules around those devices. There's no child that will be left behind. Honestly, it is you're doing your children more favor by giving them a childhood rich in offline experiences than you are by giving them access to devices too early on. And I've seen that. I've been through that. I've got, as I said, an almost 18-year-old. I can see the difference today between him and many of his peers that grew up online in terms of EQ, in terms of outlook, in terms of being able, to manage himself, where he's going, the sense of responsibility. And I think just his general ability to survive in the future world he's going to be at a much better advantage than many of his peers who unfortunately didn't get the same kind of offline exposure, were not required to spend more time offline than they did online. And I get it, because it is easier. A quiet child is a convenient child. Having children on devices gives parents peace and quiet, but it comes with a huge downside if it's not well managed and done so very mindfully and intentionally.
We had a child psychologist on a few months ago who said it's shocking the amount of developmental skills that are not being met in this generation, this coming generation. They should be playing outside, using their imagination, playing with sticks and stones outside in the garden, and they it's terrible. Okay, perfect. Are there any upcoming events or workshops or collabs that you're doing? And then just to give us your contact details as well.
Yeah. So we've got a very exciting collaboration happening. It's starting on the 13th of December and running to the 13th of January. So together with Dr. Anke de Beer from the Reboot Institute, we are running a family digital detox, or a family reboot, if you will. And so it's going to be run on a WhatsApp group, and every day families that join up will get some awesome challenges, some insights, really re-looking at how they are able to be in each other's presence. So it's all about, your presence, not the presents that we give for Christmas or for end of the year. And so it's really about re-looking at how, as a family, lots of ideas and suggestions and tips on playing together, how we can have, much more in-person fun over the December period. So that's a really amazing opportunity for any parents that would like to join us over December into January. And then we do have monthly webinars. So again, if you go to our website, www.sfc-sa.co.za, on our events page will be always information about what the next upcoming webinar is going to be. Our YouTube channel is where we put up past webinars, so anybody who's missed any of those can go and have a look at our YouTube channel as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely wonderful, very insightful.
Thank you for having us.